There once was a boy named Fuzz. Fuzz lived in a poor town full of very superstitious people. This community was nearly devoid of color. The ground and buildings were covered in snow. Anything that was not was weathered and gray. Even the needles on the trees sported a dull, lifeless green. Even the eyes of the people were plainly colored. The darkest browns, the palest blues, the coldest hazels, and the grayest greens. It was almost as if the people made up for their gray world with their obsessive superstitions. Ladders were not to be walked under, salt was contained in non-spill containers, and you most certainly were not to own a black cat. Their greatest superstition was a young albino girl with ghostly white skin and ruby-colored eyes. It was said that peering into these eyes, which held the most warm and bright color that anyone in the community had ever seen, would grant this ghostly being entrance into your very soul. They covered her eyes with a dark blindfold, and she walked through the town, appearing to be an apparition nearly blending into the landscape. Everyone in the community feared the soul seer, except for Fuzz. Fuzz often spent time staring at her near invisible form. To him, her beauty was inhuman and untouchable. He did not dare get near her for fear of what others would think. One day, a giant black panther entered the town and terrorized the people. Everyone hid inside their homes, and no one dared to exit lest the black feline cross their path. Even the shy Fuzz sought the security of his home from the beast. The soul seer, however, had no fear of the beast. She approached the panther, and it only noticed her when she was a mere 3 feet away. Fuzz was very frightened for her, and would not dare to see such beauty torn apart by that monster. Seeking to protect her, Fuzz barged out of the safety of his home into the sight of the girl who always held his gaze. It was at that moment that she removed her blindfold, keeping her eyes closed. A sharp intake of breath sounded from every observer. Then the soul seer opened her eyes and stared deep into the silver eyes of the large cat. The crimson of her irises shone like fresh roses, sparkling against the gray of her surroundings. The panther stood its own for a moment, then slowly shrank back into itself. He pulled his ears back and tucked his tail between his legs. It took a step away, and the soul seer took one forward. "Leave," she muttered. Fuzz stared at her in disbelief as silence overtook them. Not a sound was heard from the homes, nor the wind, nor the snowflakes, as they no longer fell. Then the beast started away in terror. Fuzz smiled and looked at the soul seer. "Wow," he muttered. Despite the absence of danger, the world remained silent. The soul seer gazed at Fuzz and smiled, her clean white teeth barely noticeable. "Everything is safe now," she whispered to him, "so let everything enjoy it." Taking her blindfold in either hand, she pulled it back around her eyes. As the last knot was pulled close, the townsfolk emerged from their homes, and life and sound returned. Daily life continued as usual, only now Fuzz was no longer afraid to stand and walk with the soul seer, the savior of their town.